Hello, everyone. And so today, what I'm going to talk about is anger. And because I love to read a whole lot of books, what I'm going to do is basically, take what I want to talk about with anger and kind of combine it with some books that also talk about anger as well and just kind of have a good conversation about it, I guess. The books that I'm going to reference today is Love and Rage. As you can see, I've tabbed up all of the pages because it's such a great book. And Untamed, which I also love. And The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's really good as well. And so, when talking about anger, I think anger is just one of those emotions that really does get it's just misunderstood, unfortunately. In my opinion, I think people confuse anger with rage. And so when you see someone acting all out of control and being impulsive and maybe hitting and screaming and all of those things, a lot of people categorize that as, oh, that person's angry. When in fact, it's probably, no, they have some rage issues that they need to deal with. In my feeling, when you think about anger, it is one of those emotions that's very honest. It'll let us know that, hey, a boundary has been crossed. It lets us know that, someone has really done something that was disrespectful, that really touched on our self-worth, that touched on how we feel about ourselves. And so I think it's really attached to our self-esteem. I get angry because you offended me. You offended me, who I am, and I feel disrespected. And so I do feel like it's a healthy emotion. And so, when it comes to, what some of these books say just about anger, let me flip to, so I'm using Untamed. And basically, one excerpt that talks about anger in this book, it basically says, let me see if I can find it. Oh, and so here we go. And so it's basically just saying that, well, I won't say basically. Where I'll go with this is one thing that I hear from a whole lot of people is that, or the reason why they don't want to use the word anger is because they feel like anger is so destructive. It's not healthy. And so one thing that this says is that destruction is essential to construction. If we want to build the new, we must be willing to let the old burn. We must be committed to holding on to nothing but the truth. We must decide that if the truth is inside us, can burn a belief, family structure, or business, religion, and industry, it should have become ashes yesterday. And so, just basically what I'm taking out from that is just that, it may feel like in the moment that, things are really falling apart when you get angry. It may feel like it's very uncontrollable, but in reality, it's allowing you to, and everybody else, to really have a better understanding of who you are, what you need, what you don't need. I think it is that key element to get to that place of truth where you're on the same page with people and you're living more authentically. And so that's just, a piece of what that is saying. From the book Love and Rage, what it also says is that anger is full of wisdom. And with appropriate practice, anger can actually transform into wisdom. And that wisdom is deeply liberating. And so I do feel like anger is very liberating. And then once again, this is coming from Love and Rage. Definitely recommend people read this book. It's so great. It also kind of gives you some, in this book, just kind of like a step-by-step of how to deal with anger when you feel it. And so it has like this acronym that it uses called SNOEL, And so it's one, you see it, you see your anger, you name it, name your anger, you own it, you experience it, you let it go, and let it float. I think the interesting thing about this is people will see it. Maybe they'll be able to name it. Sure, they'll own it. I'm angry. But I think people skip the experience piece and they just want to let it go. I think something that's really important is to be able to experience it. Let it sit within you. See maybe why it's triggering you. Where did this anger come from? Really sitting in it before you let it go. I think letting go of anger too prematurely, what happens with that is that you're bound to deal with it again because you really didn't process it all the way. And so that experiencing piece is really important. And then let it go because you can, because you processed it. And you processed it to a point where it's not going to cycle in your life anymore. And then you let it float, which is great. Whatever let it float means. It's just kind of like it's there. Maybe, after you let it go and you let it float, maybe it's just like you feel indifferent to it now. When you are truly over something, you can see it and you're just like, okay, oh well, as opposed to something that you haven't processed and it still has that, it still triggers you, it still hits that sore spot. And so that's how I take what, let it float means. And, the subtle art of not giving a fuck also talks about this. And so here's the book. Recommend reading that too. And it also talks about just how transformative anger can be. And so it says, everything worthwhile in life is won through surmounting the associated negative experiences. Any attempt to escape the negative, to avoid it, or squash it, or silence it, only backfires. The avoidance of suffering is a form of suffering. The avoidance of struggle is a struggle. The denial of failure is failure. Hiding what is shameful is itself a form of shame. Pain is an inextricable thread in the fabric of life. And to tear it out is not only impossible but destructive. Attempting to tear it out unravels everything else with it. To try to avoid pain is to give too many fucks about pain. In contrast, if you're able to give a fuck about pain, you become unstoppable. And so, 100% agree with that. Just really being able to face, how you're feeling, knowing that just the process of anger is such a liberating, healthy, energizing, self-loving thing that you can do. And so I hope that, people start to process it like that. And so showing you these books, these stack of books that are amazing, definitely this can, start that process of, embracing how you feel. Ultimately, that's what anger is. It's just, I am acknowledging how I feel, and my feelings matter, and what I need matter, and my boundaries matter, at that. And remember too that even if you don't use the word anger, if you say, I'm irritated, I'm agitated, I'm frustrated, I'm just feeling a little touchy right now, those all still mean anger. And so why not just allow yourself to say, I feel angry and I'm going to allow myself to process it. I think it's, the best act of self-love, self-care that anybody can do to themselves or for themselves and for others around you. And so I say, let's get angry together and, talk to you later. We'll go to the next emotion in the next stack of books. And so see you then. Goodbye.